For everyone, we want to make sure that we're bringing in the right people, because it's after 8 years, I'm kind of sometimes running into walls about who do we need to talk to without just overdoing it. And Beth and I are just so upset that we don't have Robert Finn anymore. I think it's just a travesty. Just not for people with disabilities, it's for the retirees too. So shame on Social Security for doing Robert Finn. So for those who, Robert Finn was our outreach from Social Security. He came every year, and he kind of walked us through all those hate letters we get. We don't understand them, and we need Jennifer Lyle to sit beside us so she can help us understand them. And so we're going to hopefully rely on Jennifer to try to get us through some of our Social Security stuff from now on. She can't find us somebody. So, but thank you, Jennifer, for always being there for us. Okay, well, I guess, but on that comment card, just tell us what you think, please. We're not sensitive. You can just, if you feel we're doing something wrong, let us know so we can do it right. Some of the things we can change, and some things we can't. I know last year somebody was talking about getting doctors and dentists to come. We'll never get doctors and dentists to come, because they will not want to put their name out and be bombarded with people with disabilities. So, but one thing I will do, and I will talk to Gary, DD has talked about the DD doctor that DODD has.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I'm working on her name.
Okay, well,
yeah.
and I will probably
she's really
get
good.
her to talk to her, just to come and talk to us as doctors. And again, a lot of what we have concern about is we're going to be talking next month with Medicaid.
What's her name?
So,
and she's also a parent. That's why she's a parent.
Down syndrome child?
Autism.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
So a lot of people didn't know there was a doctor that is part of the network of the ODD. So, okay, well, I guess it's, so please, fill out those forms. There's baskets there, just put it in it. So I'm going to hand it over to Gary so we can get this going. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
I don't think we need a mic. You guys can hear it.
Well, let us know.
Okay.
Yeah,
let us know if there's someone.
There's nobody there.
Okay.
And I'm checking my phone to make sure that they can't get in again.
Yeah. To keep focused, I wrote everything down this time. I tend to, but I don't have my glasses, so Dave was going to read it.
Did you guys expect any less?
Yeah. So I always say the ark is conception, resurrection, and everything in between. So this is going to sound disjointed. But
you want to introduce yourself?
Okay. My name's Gary Tonks. I'm the president.
I think there's some new people, right?
And CEO for the Ark of Ohio. I've been part of the Ark since 1974. This is my 50th anniversary. As of, I am sorry. But I joined as a volunteer. I can't see. I can see this way, but if it looks gas.
Never a dull moment. All right, so my name's David Lewis. I'm the Executive Vice President for the Ark of Ohio at Columbus. Been with the Ark now 13 years. So happy to be here. Happy to share whatever information we can share with you, any kind of wisdom we have. I'm happy to share that. So.
And jump in, you all know, just kind of jump in. But I wanted to start with some of the legislation we're working on in Columbus. The first piece is something that was pretty controversial for the organization that started everything. I call us the grandmother of the disability movement. The first piece of legislation is something that affects a bill that was adopted in the 1930s. The Fair Labor Standards Act says that under certain conditions, employers can pay people with disabilities less than minimum wage. That's primarily in our sheltered workshops. You have to have a certificate. It's called a 14C certificate that's issued by the state of Ohio. People with disabilities came to us and said, we don't think that's right. We want to say in Ohio that you can't pay less than minimum wage. It took our board over a year, but our board voted to support the elimination of an employer's ability to pay less than minimum wage. That bill was introduced, it's been introduced 2 years in a row. It will not pass before the end of the year, but it'll be reintroduced next year. It has the support of the general disability community, but we learned last week that there's another way that this could go away. The Fair Labor Standards Act is a national law, but we're hearing the Department of Labor may write an administrative rule that says you can't pay less than minimum wage. And the projection is that the rule process would take 2 years at least. So maybe in 2026. So right now, 14 other states have outlawed this. So we're on a roll. Our legislature is not real big on doing this. When I talk to state legislators, remember we have a conservative majority in our Senate and the House, and I'll get responses like, well, I don't really even support minimum wage. You know, so we've got a debate in Ohio. Pennsylvania's got the same thing going on. But I wanted to let you know that's one of the pieces of legislation. What is the other?
All right, so stable account.
Okay, so are you all familiar with the stable accounts?
Stable account.
Yeah, on a national level, it's called the ABLE account. It's an account you can establish with the state treasurer's office where you can put your loved one's money in, and it doesn't count against their SSI or their Medicaid benefits. But when Ohio created its law, it said, well, David can create this account, but when David dies, whatever money is in that account will be used to pay back whatever Medicaid spent. Governor DeWine appointed me to the Stable Advisory Board earlier this year, and I'm kind of loud, but I said, I don't think that's right. And the legislators in the room said, well, we didn't even know that happened. So a bill will be introduced, or it has been introduced. It could pass. The legislature's not in session yet, but they're going to come back after the election. And what they usually do is they dump a lot of things in to one big bill. It could pass, or if it doesn't, it'll be reintroduced next year to say Medicaid cannot, and it's called claw back money in the account. So everyone we've talked to supports it. With some of these provisions in law, it would cost more money for them to go after your money than they would actually get. And we don't want people in the last week of someone's life trying to spend a lot of money. So those are the two major.
They don't really pull a lot back.
No, when we asked them to do research, it was very minimal. You know, we've got a $500 million in this account already. And maybe 5,000 or 6,000 has been taken back. It really hasn't been worth the state's while. So those are two pieces of legislation we're working on. The other major one is something that'll be introduced early next year. It's the state budget. And David and I sit on a coalition with the county boards and the major trade associations. And you know, in the last bill, we were able to get a 38% raise for our provider. We're going to not be able to get that this time, but we're still going to go back and ask for more money. One of the challenges we have, and one of the concerns we have, is that Ohio and the rest of the states got a lot of federal money piled in for COVID. And the states didn't spend it real fast, and they used it for things like raises and balancing the budget. So we don't think we're going to get a cut, but we do think the state legislature will be looking for money. And we know we're not going to get 38.
I think we have to be the loudest voice in the room, right? So I think we have to keep advocating and fighting for increases to support our loved ones. I'm a big believer in, for years, I think in Ohio, we kicked the can down the road. We were scared to ask for what we needed. And every time we got a 4 or 5%, you're throwing pennies at $1 billion hole. So I think we've convince the organizations to have a little bit of a shift, and that proof was last year in the budget, getting those increases. But we have to continue to advocate, and your stories mean so much. You have to get there to testify in person if you can. You have to write letters. It doesn't mean we're going to get what we are going to ask for, but we definitely need to keep asking for what we need to support people.
Right. So remember, this will be Governor DeWine's budget.
Yes.
But next year is his last year. So the new governor will come in and modify it some with the new legislature. But we're going to need your help next year, as David said. And you don't always have to come to Columbus. You've got some very powerful senators and representatives. Bill knows them. He will help, as always, to help coordinate things. And we may be asking to attend these meetings. What the families do is tell the stories. The providers and the county boards will give the math, and then we back it up with the actual stories of why we need those additional dollars. So the big question has always been, and the county boards and the ARC are pretty tight on this, we want to know what you did with the money. You know, we want to make sure that the money went to direct support staff. Now, if you're an independent provider, you got the 38% raise automatically. But we believe that agencies should be paying or giving benefits that equate to at least 17, 18 or more an hour. So we're doing informal surveys right now that we're sending them out, and we've discovered, and not surprisingly, many of the agencies have not actually given the increase. There's no law saying they have to. We believe it's a moral responsibility that they do it. They don't have to give it in a raise, but they have to benefit their staff in some way. It could be benefits, it could be time off, it could be bonuses, it could be training, it could be lots of things. But we're going to need your help to encourage agencies to complete these surveys. If you find an agency, and we know there are some along the river, they're still paying $13 an hour. We need to know that, because it's going to have to be pressure from us as families. So we know you got the money. You know, we know you got it. Raise it up, and it's going to be an open business model. You didn't raise, they raised, maybe I'll choose this company. So
I got sidetracked a little bit
Yes.
there, sorry. Little technical issues, getting the Zoom started. But, so every provider that's certified in Ohio is mandated to complete this survey, right?
Well, the major one, the one right now is informal.
Okay.
You're
But
talking about the one.
So it's called, it used to be called the NCI, it's a National Core Indicator Survey, and Ohio modified that so we could try to track data, but still compare ourselves to the other states. It's mandatory that every provider completes that survey, and eventually that information will end up on the ODDP website, so it will be public information.
And this survey that Dave's talking about is the one at the end of the year.
Yes, yeah.
So right now, we're just
You gotta
asking.
close the door.
I did.
There you go.
It's Halloween.
There you go.
Oh, very good. So, yeah, so the one right now is informal, but the one at the end of the year is
So
mandated,
which one are you talking about, the informal one?
the coalition one.
Okay.
Yeah, where county boards and us have sent out a survey, but the one at the end of the year, which will show a full year, the January raise and then July raise, we will make it public. There is pressure, and again, I have to stress, the ARC and the county boards are mandating that this be public information.
Yeah.
There is pressure from some to not make it public. We will make it public, even if we have to do a public information request.
Oh.
And we will make it public that this is
Who doesn't want to make it public?
the people that haven't given the raises.
Yeah.
With the agencies.
Yeah,
With the agency's name, doesn't our government, doesn't our state government
no,
mandate?
well, there is no law saying they have to.
Right.
There is a law saying this is how much we're paying you. but it's the use of public dollars. So the information is public, but some have suggested it's public information, but you have to ask for it.
So
That's different than, here it's on in the newspaper.
So let me come full circle back to why that's so important when we talk about 38% wage increase to our system and legislators saying, where's this money going to? And now people going into the State House or writing letters saying, we didn't see that wage increase. That is going to be tough. So we have to hold people accountable for those wage increases. And remember, it doesn't always have to be a direct wage increase, right?
Right.
It could be some sort of benefit that is benefiting that direct service professional, that employee.
Right.
Okay?
So, and keep in mind, people refer to our system as the Wild West sometimes. Many of these agencies don't know about wage and hour law. They don't know, and I've seen some, they don't know that if I work past 40 hours, that I get overtime. They don't know this kind of stuff. But the fact that I don't know, I shouldn't stop at a stop sign doesn't mean I did something wrong. You know, so we have to hold people accountable. We just have to hold them accountable.
So circle back around real quick. First survey Gary's talking about is an informal survey with the coalition that represents people with disabilities, county boards, provider agencies, providers, okay? The one I talked about is mandated for every certified provider in Ohio at the end of the year, and it's a crosswalk to what's called the National Core Indicators, and that information there gets made public on the ODDP website.
So it is going to be complicated. Even the informal survey, some people didn't know how to fill it out because they don't keep good payroll records. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so, on the cover record, it sounds like similar to what they do in the nursing homes. But will each agency's name be listed?
We're hoping so.
Okay, and then these are just a couple of just comments on these things.
Right.
So a lot of times agencies will pay people different, like you may pay 113, you may pay 118. So I'm wondering that would probably just.
Yeah, we're hoping,
faster.
yeah, it'll be all consolidated. But yeah, because they don't have to give a raise.
Oh,
Maybe they give access to benefits. There's no requirement, it's just, what did you do with the 38% increase in the rate that you got?
And I totally agree with you, but the one thing that some of the agencies are having, since there is shortage of staff, they are paying lots of overtime.
Yeah, right.
So
And
they
they can
can't.
say that.
Oh, so paying overtime will
So,
count? Will
yeah,
count.
it counts.
Okay.
So
Okay.
remember, an independent provider that works over 40 hours gets time and a half. An agency does not get any more money if one of their staff has to work over 40. So every time you work over 40 hours, the agency really suffers a loss. And they can use that. There'll be lots of space to say, I wanted to, but I couldn't, and here's the reason why I couldn't. Yes?
What if you're independent?
It doesn't matter.
You get it direct.
You just get it direct.
So in Ohio, two types of providers, right? Certified. Independent gets paid directly by the state, so that 38% already comes to me directly if I'm certified as an independent provider. If I'm an agency provider who hires DSPs, employees, the agency bills and gets that reimbursement. I then have to figure out how to pass that wage on to my employees. Okay? And the young lady over here who brought up the thing about the differences in pays, that's very important too, because you have people who are starting out brand new, working for an agency, right? Versus I've got a middle manager who's got 10 years in, so there's always a balance there of how do I pass that wage on and be fair to everyone I'm employing too.
Now I have a question.
Yes.
Okay.
Who do we report to if we don't think we got a raise? Do we let the ARC know?
No. Encourage your agency to fill out the survey.
So
That's online.
who's the
Janet.
so if Janet is an independent, she should be asking that question because she would have got it directly. If she's an employee of an agency, she then has to decide in her mind, Here's the problem with some of it. Is she going to then report her agency, who she's relying on to provide services for her loved one? So that's the catch, right? People call us all the time and say, this agency's not doing and not passing on the wages. And then we go, okay, who's the agency? Let's talk about it. Oh, well, I don't want to go any further. They're not paying enough. And I'm like, oh, I can't do anything about it then if you're not.
That was sort of my question. We're in a situation, unfortunately, where we're going to have to be hiring some agency for some short-term stuff.
Mhm.
Is it fair game when we interview to say, how have you implemented the wage?
I would just say, how much are you paying?
Just how much are you
Yeah, so it varies. So, and I'll use the ARC as an example. A starting direct support professional with the ARC starts between $17.59 an hour and almost $22 an hour. It depends on who they're supporting, what skills they bring to the job, but the base for us is $17.59. The average is well over the $18 that we had said we would do. Ask how much.
But does that include benefits as well?
You ask whatever you want to ask. You're shopping for a provider. Yeah, Bill.
I can speak very well to Stark County. So we had 100% compliance we had 100% compliance of our agency providers reporting. And the starting wage that's being paid by our agency providers is $16.50, and it goes, of course, up to that $19 per hour.
Right.
So, and then we also had a proliferation of independent providers that they've nearly doubled since July 1.
Right. Yeah. So there are a lot of variables, and I don't think we've got the survey, but we don't necessarily have a document on how the data is going to be compiled. You've been waiting a long time. Thanks.
I was just gonna say, if we have so many DSPs calling, then why aren't we just looking to them to get the service? I mean, I'm sure they're more than willing to tell who they're working for, how much they were making now, what they're making,
Right.
if they're doing training, things of that nature.
Right. Yeah. I think once all this information is published, I think that's what will happen. DSP as well as families will begin talking to one another. Many of our DSPs that call us say, "But I signed a non-compete clause." We don't think those are necessarily legal or enforceable, but it is what it is. I can't imagine a multi-billion-dollar corporation spending the time and resources to go after a minimum wage employee. But it's a fear tactic. So that is what it is. We'll be able to tell you more in January with the official survey. We don't even think we've received 30%. I'm happy in Stark that they got 100%.
Are agencies required to fill out the survey?
No.
Not the informal
this
one,
But the formal.
but the formal one from the state, yes, they are. They have
Right.
to.
And they'll get dinged on their certification. If they don't, we're hoping at least.
Okay, so Gary,
Yeah.
could you repeat the question after it's asked, because they can't always hear
Okay.
the question?
Sure.
Okay.
So they want the answer.
And please, if you're gonna talk, let me give you this, so everybody
Right.
on Zoom.
The-
can
There's
hear.
a
You might
lot
want
of
to bring that
people.
closer.
The
Yeah.
current, well, we need to move on at this point. The current wage survey is optional. It's a voluntary survey from the county boards, the ARC, and the trade associations. The survey that will be done, like we said, the end of the year, it'll be done at the beginning of next year, because it'll be a whole year, will be mandatory from the Department of Developmental Disabilities, and they're gonna have to say, this is general, what did you do with the money? So.
I would think they would have, I would think they would have guidelines and requirements for how money is spent.
Does Walmart have guidelines on how money is
Well, yeah,
spent?
they do. We
No.
have labor laws that they have to adhere to.
But they charge the price they want to charge.
They charge the price that the customer is willing to pay.
And they pay their staff, the staff you're willing to accept as their agency.
Right.
So these are businesses, these are independent businesses. So
If there are no minimum requirements or standards.
it's an independent business. Yeah, go ahead. The Shell station can charge whatever you're willing to pay at the Shell station. Yeah, let Bill have a comment behind you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, in regards to requesting everyone's wages, there is a concern for antitrust law.
Yes.
And antitrust law and price fixing and wage fixing, so that is the challenge that the department and Jerry and Dave
Right.
are up against in regards to requesting the wage information.
Right. Because we can't even request we wouldn't be able to request who are all your employees. Walmart's not gonna tell me how all of their employees are. So we've got so we need to move on. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Two questions,
Two
okay?
questions, okay.
Just two questions. The first one is with this survey thing.
Yes.
Are they going to have to submit proof, or can they just lie on their survey?
It's informal survey.
No, the formal one.
Well, so you gotta remember, the one from the state is, if I'm the state and you're providing me data, then you're a certified provider. I can then look at that data
Okay.
and claims and those kind of
Yeah,
things.
they're gonna know if things
But
sound
the
really weird.
informal,
It's whatever.
We're just getting a feel for
Okay.
what happened.
That was my first question.
Okay.
The second question is going back to your stable thing, your stable
Right.
account. Okay, there's a provider in Coshocton, and I told her to call you. I don't know whether she did or not. That was told by Social Security that the raise that they're trying to do for Social Security asset limit
Okay.
will never go through because people are able to save money in the stable accounts.
No, it's not true.
So that's what she was told to, and she's afraid to open a stable account for those reasons.
No, that's not true. No, from my point of view as a board member, that's not true. I will ask the treasurer's office. These
I'll
were
give you
set
her name
up
later.
to protect your federal and state benefits, so.
And that's what I told her,
Yeah.
but
I know, but as you all know, Job and Family Services, Social Security, and Medicaid don't always give us
correct answers.
Oh, the hours.
Surprise!
okay, so
what's next?
wrap up on that. You got questions, our cards are over there, so feel free to reach out to us.
Since I
Up
can't
next, I got you,
We're
calm down.
like to number 2.
No, we're actually on 3.
Okay.
Ohio Rise.
Okay.
Oh, I don't think Ohio Rise.
Have you all heard about Ohio Rise? Ohio Rise is a Medicaid managed care program for children with behavioral health needs, mental health needs. You have to be a child. I just want to mention it because I'm also on the Ohio Rise Advisory Board. And someone told me I was a pain in the ass the other day.
Your wife? Was that your wife?
But I gotta tell you, the
Was that his
Maureen Berger, the
Are you-
director of the department, said, stay strong, Gary. She sent me a private.
You said you wouldn't tell anybody, I said that to you.
I know. So, yeah. Actually had an advocate call me the other day and say, hey, Gary, I need a jerk. And you're the first person to talk to me. So, as a board member, well, I'm gonna help him, it's okay. So, Ohio Rise has a no wrong door approach to entering Ohio Rise. My personal feeling is there are so many doors and people at the door that don't really know what they're talking about. So what they've discovered is a program for children with mental health challenges, but over 30% of the children enrolled have developmental disabilities, which the Department of Medicaid did not expect. Doesn't surprise me. You can be on an IO, a level 1, or a self-waiver, and still be eligible for Ohio Rise because you have mental health issues. But I put it on the agenda just to remind folks, it's a Medicaid program. So you have access to Ohio Rise, which are mental health therapies and services, but you also have access to a Medicaid card. And there is a rumor out there, even among some of the caseworkers, that you're on Ohio Rise, but you can't use a Medicaid card to go and get your drugs. You can. It's a Medicaid program. So if you hear of anyone, call us that is having challenges with Ohio Rise. It's a new program, so there aren't many providers. There is an Ohio Rise waiver. You all know from here, I said in the past, this is a children's program. Most of the Ohio kids aren't eligible for Medicaid because their parents are middle income. If Medicaid gives your child an Ohio Rise waiver, they waive family income and assets, just like in the DD world, and you have access to Ohio Rise and that Medicaid card. So just call us if you have issues with Ohio Rise. Yes.
Hang on, get the mic there, hang on.
When you say children, are you saying 18 and under, or 17 and under?
21 and
No,
under.
it goes up to 22, it uses,
21,
but it's 21, you have to be
You
younger
gotta-
than
yeah,
21
you
because
gotta
it
be
takes you a
younger.
while.
under 22.
But it's more
That's where
than
it
like
gets
a special ed
There's no
kind of age range.
plan for after you turn 22
Yeah,
with these
yes,
kids.
yes.
And that's why I don't like the plan.
Just Google Ohio Rise, and it'll show you the door to knock on. It's a managed care program. It's administered by Aetna on a state level.
And it has providers listed on.
Well, that's the challenge, you know. It includes inpatient hospitalization, but try to find inpatient hospitalization.
I tried to get mental health help for my daughter. Akron Children's.
Talk a little louder, hon.
Because she was 17,
Okay.
they wouldn't take her
Eat the mic.
because they said she would soon age out.
There's an entry age, and frankly, that's close to it. Does she have Medicaid?
Yes, she
She
has
should have been
Medicaid.
able to access,
Trust me, there's
yeah.
providers are hard to come by.
Right, well, yeah, that's it. And Ohio Rise rates are actually higher than DD rates. Yes, go ahead.
So we are an Ohio Rise agency.
Oh, okay.
However,
Mm-hmm.
the reason that a lot of agencies are not participating is because the billing is a nightmare. I have about 6 to 10 children that we service, and I have been paid for only 1.5 of the time. But I just do it
I
because we're
think
here
you
to
stole
help.
my email, send it to me.
Thank God I showed up tonight and he said what you said.
Yes.
But I know you got another person
So,
on your door.
the kind of advocate I am, I sit on the Ohio Rise board. I asked David to get us certified as an Ohio Rise provider. We have never used it because it was traumatic even getting certified. And the deal was, if you're already a DD provider, we'll flip a switch and allow you to be Ohio Rise. It took us 3 months, and it was the most Byzantine, I love that word, process I have ever been through. And we've never billed because
It's a nightmare.
it was a nightmare.
Well, I want to say, so next month, we're going to be talking to Medicaid. We're going to be talking to two people coming from Columbus that do nothing but Medicaid managed care and payments. Because again, we're going to be talking about high dental, why we can't get dental, and doctors are dropping off. So again, this is all going to come to, so we need you here next month.
Is Jesse
Yeah, I
coming?
mean, I think when we talk about our
Is Jesse
systems,
coming?
guys, you gotta remember, I gotta be a willing and able provider, right? And I gotta be, if I'm a doctor or dentist, I gotta be willing to take that Medicaid rate. And if I'm not,
Okay, I don't know those names.
you're not, right? So, even when we get people certified and the services are available, you might not be able to sometimes find someone. What's next? Court updates.
Oh, okay.
Probate judges.
So, as I said, we're like all over. So those, if any of you are providers and you've recently asked your probate court, I'm a provider and I'm also a guardian, please give me permission. And the court, Dixie probably does it here for you, but many of the county courts are saying, hold off, we're not gonna do anything right now. This all emanated from a Supreme Court decision about a decade ago, that guardians in the DD system who are family members must have permission from the court to be able to provide services. But there was no standardized way to do that. The probate judges have all gotten together and they're in the process of developing some standard form on how to determine whether it's okay for a parent to be a parent, a guardian, and a provider. So if you're hearing resistance, and given it's Stark County, I don't think that's gonna happen here, but we know in Cleveland it is.
In Summit County.
The Cleveland
Summit.
Court, the Summit Court have both, well, we'll get to that. You know, at this point, I've advised families, talk to your county board, let them know you've applied, and work it out with your county board. The other thing is that the probate judges have gotten together and are trying to redo whatever assessment they determine. Right now, Dave can be a guardian and a parent because I've known Dave and I've known his kid, and that's how it's done. They're coming up with a questionnaire of XYZ. Answer these questions, and if you answer the way I want you to ask system-wide, then you can be a guardian. We're not talking provider and guardian anymore, we're just talking about guardian for people with developmental disabilities. I don't have the form yet. One of our board members is on the committee and has asked me to review it and have the ARC comment. I'll let you know when I know more, but if you're talking to any of your friends who are applying for guardianship, know they're talking about
Hang on. No, you may
us
not.
right now.
Please sit down.
I don't think they had a concept of how broad the term of developmental disabilities is. And you probably heard from your school district, go get guardianship, go get guardianship.
I'm actually going through that process right now.
Miriam.
They have adopted and
Every county is different. So what I'm saying is they're gonna try to standardize it for the whole state.
I'm sorry, you forgot your band.
Yeah.
if I move forward and my background checks, I mean, you know.
Yeah, every county is different. So if you're not seeing any roadblocks, I'm just letting you know,
There is no hostess.
if someone hesitates, that's why. They're working on a form.
And who makes medical decisions for these, you know, if you're not the guardian?
Doctor, or hospitals have an obligation in an emergency to do, yeah. 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 There are other pieces of legislation pending on supporting decision-making, authorized representatives, powers of attorney. There are lots of options to guardianship, but I was just informing you that things are being talked about. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay, it's a big one. Waiver updates.
Okay.
The big one.
So, there's always an update with waivers. What do I have under that?
We've got the first one, which I feel is going to be could be a little controversial.
Okay.
16, 17-year-old DSP assistants now in the agency rule.
So, the homemaker personal care rule was just updated for agencies. This does not apply to independent providers. But the new rule for homemaker personal care says that an agency can employ a 16 or a 17-year-old as what's called a direct support professional assistant. It was not something we supported, but it's something that is now in rule. But there are conditions. The DSP assistant could be 16 or 17. They cannot work in the same location alone. Now, location to me means the building. As a former direct support staff person, someone was in the shower, someone was, location. But a DSP assistant cannot do intimate personal care. And they have to have permission from the individual and or the guardian to have someone who's under 18 helping with some of the stuff. And there could be conditions. So, do I want a 16-year-old boy helping a 40-year-old woman at a certain time of the month? Do I? I mean, yeah. So we're going to be watching it very carefully. It's a very few number of agencies that are going to be doing it. It will be in group settings. It could be in a private setting if you have a loved one with a behavior challenge and your board has authorized 2-on-1. If it's an agency, at least in theory, Dave and a 16-year-old could be applied. If you don't want that to happen, protest. You know, the other thing is a 17-year-old, a 16-year-old, an agency just can't call and get a background check. You'll have to get the parents' permission to get a background check on a 16 or 17-year-old. My comment to the department was, how does it work with a major unusual incident? If I believe that 16-year-old did something that I would report a 20-year-old for, what's the process? Well, I do the reporting, and I said, are you gonna put a 16-year-old on the abuser registry? No.
Just making sure you're not going.
So, even though it might be substantiated that a 16-year-old did something, the department will not be placing that person on the abuser registry. I know lots of 16 and 17-year-olds. You know, I think they're following criminal law that you get a fresh start when you're 18. But if it's still my kid, you know, so I know that will be debated for more.
Somebody asked me
Remember
this.
before there was a waiver of that.
Yeah, there was a waiver. Agencies have been allowed to do it during the pandemic. We didn't have a problem in a camp setting. You know, in a typical camp setting, you have teenagers and adults, and it's a larger group. We had issues with a 4-person group home.
Will the GED requirement, did that waiver be extended?
Yeah, that's the next thing. So also in this rule is they eliminated the requirement that you have a GED or a high school diploma. To be very honest, we said, we know lots of people that, we know the Amish community in this area, where a young woman who is 18 years old would be a great staff person if she could manage the technical stuff. And you're not gonna get an Amish person with a high school diploma.
And just keep in mind when we talk about those things, there are still requirements behind if somebody has passing meds and doing some other health-related activities too. So it doesn't mean this is across the board. I can hire a 16-year-old and they can pass meds and do this other stuff. So
We
keep that in mind.
We
There's still-
employ an older mom who never graduated or had a GED,
Yeah.
and we received a waiver from the director. She's really good. And she has a child with a disability. She raised a child, I think she's in her late 50s, and we saw no other reason. The superintendent supported it, and the state said, yeah, sounds okay for us. Yeah, you had a question online.
Oh, no, they said, would this be a written or documented permission from the guardian? Would they, I'm guessing?
I think it would be if the guardian said, I don't want. Yeah, I think you have to put everything in writing.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's not in writing, it didn't happen.
Sure.
That, if you're, especially if you're talking about the individual service plan, right? That's how services are authorized, so.
So what else?
You basically said, we sit on a committee regarding agency reviews.
Okay. Well, that was a note to myself.
No, okay,
So-
well, that's why I thought, it seemed like a funny thing to put on.
Right.
there.
So all of these rules, and we've asked about where's the accountability. The department has asked David and I to sit on a committee on when we go out to review agencies, what should we look for? You know, so if you email us, let us know what we should be looking for and asking. These are county boards or the state when they go out. What are we supposed to look for? Now, they look for background checks. They look for training. I want them to look and talk to people with disabilities and their families. You know, and so like, what's the real world? When I ask, will you talk about overtime? Will you talk about, no. You know, that's not something we're gonna talk about. Those are not our rules. My backup was, but our rules say you have to follow all other rules. but they didn't believe that their staff should be talking about that. So if you know of anything, that will not go into effect, we don't think, until July. We're just meeting every other week to talk about what should be in the agency rule review process.
Say that 3 times.
Yeah.
So remember, going back, agency certified providers, independent, obviously a 16 or 17-year-old cannot be certified as an independent in our state, right? You have to be 18 to be a certified independent. Again, I think when we talk about 16 to 17-year-olds working in more of a group type setting, it might make a little more sense, but our concern would be, one of the reasons why this was pushed was a shortage of DSPs, right? So if I can send an assistant to someone's home, but they can't really work alone, doesn't really get to the crux of the issue. But I think in general, what we want to do as a system is to kind of promote this field also, right? So whether that's at tech colleges and those kind of things, to get people interested in this field. Guys, we've got hundreds of thousands of people that need services. We've got to get
what they do in healthcare with CNAs.
Yeah, we've got to start somewhere and get people. Yeah.
So one of the things the department has done, and Bill mentioned it, an independent provider can make about $32 an hour now. Mm-hmm. So there are lots and lots of people saying, hey, I want to be an independent provider. So many people that it has clogged the certification system. But the department is willing to give priority to some. So if you know someone that is desperate for a staff person, they've already identified who they want to work, and their independent provider has been sitting there for months, let us know. And the department, especially if it's a person with a behavior issue or complex needs, the department will make them a priority. But what we're finding is so many people are coming forward that really, this is Gary talking, please don't come forward. I mean, that they don't have the skills necessary. I always tell people, if you don't know how to fill out the form, that's a test, because it only gets more difficult from here with the paperwork. It is a test. All the stuff has to be submitted at the same time. If I can't read your driver's license because you didn't copy it correctly, it's not going to go through. It can be as simple as that. If you've got a problem from a decade ago with the police, they're going to know about it. And if they're going to know about it, why go through the process? I mean, check things yourself before you begin the process.
So with the new certification tools, you can do that. In the past, you used to be able to, if I uploaded something, I couldn't actually view the document I uploaded, but now I can. So it should eliminate some of those things that cause the backlog or waiting.
Right.
Yeah. So
and some of the slow processes, if you're applying to be an agency, your criminal background check doesn't come to you. It goes to the Department of DD. And with literally hundreds and hundreds of going through, it gets clogged up at BCI, the Bureau of Criminal Investigation. Is that what it is?
Yeah, the main offices in London,
So
Ohio.
it's sometimes not even the department's fault, and sometimes it can get clogged up at the Department of Medicaid, who also has to give you that Medicaid provider number. Yeah, Becky.
Okay, I heard that once you start an once you start an application, you have 2 weeks to complete it. Is that not true?
I don't know.
That's why I've been told in the P&M system that once you start an application, you only have 2 weeks to complete
that
it.
sounds about right, because if I'm going to start an application, again, that's why there's the documents ahead of time that tell me what I need to have ready to go if I'm going to sit down and take that step to get certified.
So that I can go ahead and do my continuing education, my 8 hours
Yep.
training the month before, and then once I have all my certificates for that, then I can sit down and do the application.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it until I had everything sitting in front of me.
Okay, that's why I was wondering
That doesn't,
if the time started,
yeah.
That
how
makes
that,
sense.
okay.
Yeah, you have to submit it all at the same time.
So
You
somebody's
don't have to
asked,
submit it all at the same time, But if I'm in that application and I'm uploading documents, I could log out, I could save my work,
Okay.
log out, and then go back in. But what I see from people is they don't always go back in and do it in a
Then I
timely
log back
fashion.
in, okay.
But if they're going through the ARC, like you, those
that's
documents
totally-
just can keep going in
Right,
and
right.
going in at their rate. Somebody asked statistically, are there more providers than clients?
No, I don't
No.
think so.
So I'll give you a
I
number.
don't think so.
In Ohio, you got 7 Medicaid waivers. Typically, when we're here, we talk about 3. We talk about the IO, individual options, level 1 or self. There are last time I checked, there were 2,900 agency providers, and there were 11,000 some independents. And that was 6 months ago, I think my last check, so it's probably gone up. Even when we're gathering data from these informal or formal surveys, out of those 2,900 agency providers, probably 500 of them are doing 80% of the services. Okay? So you got to remember, to be an agency, all I got to be is a CEO, meet the qualifications, and have 1 staff person, and I can be an agency. CEO, COO, whatever we want to call it. Designated DOO, whatever. There's all kinds of terms, but
Yeah.
2 people.
So the other provider thing we wanted to talk about was electronic visit verification, otherwise known as EVV. I'm going backwards? Okay. That popped into my head. So Congress, a number of years ago, said, we think there's a lot of Medicaid fraud going on. We need these electronic time clocks. Gary's version. We were the first state to do it. We said, and we put in state law that Sandata, a company, will do it for independents. Agencies have some options. And this was a number of years ago, and we've been phasing it in, supposedly, over the years, to that eventually that electric time clock will have to match up with the billing. But there have been this is a Medicaid law. There have been technical problems. Medicaid came out with a statement in the spring saying, beginning in July, if you're providing services to someone you live with, you can be exempted from having to do this. Over 2,500 people applied for the exemption, and no one has yet been approved. We've got people that have been denied because they made a mistake on the address, or they made the zip code wasn't right. No one has been approved yet because the company they hired to do it messed up. They said there were technical difficulties. So no one's been exempted yet. This is only for people that work hourly or every 15 minutes. People that get paid a daily rate have never had to do it because I'm getting paid for the whole day. So it doesn't apply for most day services. It doesn't apply to shared living. But we've been assured by Medicaid it will be coming soon. Another piece of legislation we think will be pending, and we've said we will support it, is there is an idea that we should say Sandata is not the only game in town for independent providers. There should be options. Because the legislative year is winding down, I don't think it'll be introduced soon. But if you're an independent provider that has been having problems with Sandata, and I bet that's 100% of you, we may be calling on you to testify if this is introduced. We're working with some partners, and I don't think there's a day goes by that we don't get a call saying, I can't sign on to Sandata.
Oh, it's a mess.
I live in Southeast Ohio. I don't even have the internet. I'm gonna do this.
It's just been problem after problem. They tell you the old account won't work, and then I got people logging in with the old account, and it works, but the new one doesn't, or vice versa. It's just really frustrating.
What else do we have?
We've got specialized medical equipment and supplies.
I was gonna let you do that one.
Okay, well, what was your thought when you put that down?
So we and this is good. We agree with the county boards a lot on things. There is a provision in waiver land that says if the Medicaid card will pay for it, the waiver won't pay for.
A waiver has always been a payer of last resort, guys. So what's supposed to happen is if something qualifies that I can get that through what's called a DME, a durable medical equipment supplier, I use the Medicaid part to get that. However, it's Medicaid and it's DME suppliers and it's a nightmare. So for years, I think all of us have kind of said, okay, we're trying to use this system that you tell us we have to, but I got people waiting for things and I can't have them waiting for 6 months for incontinence supplies or a bed or something like that. So as a system, we've documented, we've tried 3 times, didn't actually have 3 denial letters, because that's what Medicaid will tell you. You have to actually submit these things and get a denial, and that's the hard line they're taking now. You have to try to use that Medicaid card first before the waiver can step in and pay for those supplies.
So where counties are, I want to
Counties want to
provide
do the
that
right
service
thing.
through the waiver, the state is saying you can't until Medicaid says you can't.
But here's how difficult it is. I'm just going to use this as an example. Let's say I have a script from a doctor and they need 120 incontinence diapers a month. Medicaid will say, well, we'll do 60 and we'll only pay this much for them. And they'll say, let's say I'm a DME supplier, and they go, well, you go back to the doctor and tell them to rewrite the script. You know how well that's going to go? The doctor's going to go, heck no, I'm not rewriting the script. I'm the doctor. I know what they need. So then we're all kind of stuck in this limbo. If I'm a DME supplier, I'm not going to order 120 if I'm only going to get reimbursed for 60. And by the way, the 60 I'm getting, I'm losing money on.
So it's
very complicated.
To tell you, we're fighting behind the scenes to change that. We're not having a whole lot of luck.
Yeah, and I think our partners at the county boards are also trying to push back, but it's not been successful yet, except for they're hearing us, but not reacting to it.
Well, Lord, I need a ramp, and I needed a ramp yesterday.
Yeah.
And you got a ramp in 6 months? Well,
No, we bought the elevator, or they weren't gonna let Alyssa come home.
Yeah.
Right.
And we knew that.
And
that was a long
you can't
time
pay
ago.
for it privately and then think that Medicaid's gonna come back and reimburse. That ain't happening.
No, we just went through that with her walker. I had to talk to Medicaid and the company that's providing it and Cleveland Clinic.
Even if I have a friend that's a contractor and can do it cheaper,
No.
can't use them. I know, I'm just saying, that's the challenge within our system.
so, and I know I promised to get you out fast. So the next thing, and we'll come back. I mean,
They'll be back in February.
okay, so the waiting, I know. So we're also on a waiting
Where we at?
list rule committee.
Oh, yeah, that one's.
The waiting list rule is being rewritten. The new one isn't anticipated until July of next year. You know, there's a needs assessment. It doesn't really recognize kids very well, you know, under 18.
You do.
So the needs assessment is being rewritten and the waiver rule is going to be rewritten. The rule itself will not be changing a lot, but the assessment tool might some. It'll still talk about 30 days and 12 months, but the questions will be different because we've had experience doing it. It's not scheduled till next July to come out. What do you
Want me to
make?
go to the next one?
What is the next one?
It's about specific hours of work for
Yes,
HPC
yes.
staff and the statement of flexibility. So, what we're hearing across the state is families are being told that they have to submit specific hours of services they need for those HPC hours for the staff. And while that's always sort of been true in the sense that we do what's called a CPT, cost projection tool, to try to plan out people's services, what you want to make sure you have within that, so let's say they say to you, your staff have to work from 3 to 5. You have to have in your ISP that there is a statement of flexibility, because we all know that there are periods of time when staff don't show up and things don't go according to what's on this document, right? So you want a statement of flexibility within that ISP, so you can have staff when you need them at any
So
time.
regularly, I need the 3 to 5.
Right.
But there's been a blizzard in Canton and my staff can't, my regular staff can't get here, but the neighbor who's also in my ISP can.
Yeah.
You know, so we're trying, the department is sending out some guidance on that. They've done some training. But with
I think
thousands of SSAs, it's really hard to get everything.
I think we saw it more of an issue during the pandemic, right? So a lot of times when the school was closed and people were looking for those services for their kiddos, right? It was okay. It was from 3 to 5 or whatever. I needed those. And that still might be true in the sense that, again, everyone goes through a CPT, a cost projection tool for services. So you are trying to plan out services for someone, but again, you need that flexibility because my life doesn't always go according to this, right?
So we're 5 minutes past.
It's your fault.
I know. Well, what's the next?
Okay.
Oh, I just wanted to, if you are using participant-directed goods and services through the level 1 or the
Any
cell,
updates?
or if you're using participant-directed homemaker personal care, you're working with a company called GT Independent. Please call us if you're having issues with GT. I know. My tremor gets worse when I talk about GT Independent. It's one of those, there's not a day goes by that we don't get a complaint. The challenge is, when the state put it out for bid, we didn't like the last one. There are only 3 that bid, 3 companies. One we had that we didn't like. One that was not, the proposal wasn't even good, and we had GT Independent. I think the department needs ammunition and more ammunition. So call us. We'll pass that along. We can help on incident by incident, like my staff haven't been paid for 6 months. The vendor hasn't been paid for a year. They lost the invoice. Call us, we'll try to intervene.
Okay, last one.
Waiver modernization?
Yep.
Okay. So we got a couple, at least 2 administrations ago, we need to modernize our waiver system. I helped develop it in 1998, and at the turn of the century, it really hasn't been changed a whole lot since then. So I had a meeting this morning. The Department of DD contracted with a company named Deloitte to look at it. The first thing, they actually said a decision has been made. We're going to do away with the developmental disability profile. We're going to do away with the acuity assessment. The acuity assessment determines my staffing ratios in day services. And we, the department, want to replace it with something called the SIS.
Spell it?
SIS.
Okay.
Oh, I don't remember what it stands for.
Yeah, support intensity.
That's it. It's a valid instrument, but what was reported this, and this has to go through the rule process. So it's not just the department says we're going to change it. The meeting this morning began then a major discussion of states that have it are doing away with it because they don't believe. So for the first, it takes 3 to 5 hours to do the assessment.
Wow.
We have major SSA turnover going on right now.
Why is
So, pardon me?
Why is that? I mean, other than just
Well, part of it is,
Well, the new
independent providers are now getting $32 an hour, and if I'm in a southeast county, I'm making $17 an hour. So part of it is that. Part of it is, I never planned on doing all the paperwork. I wanted to be a social worker, you know?
The new ISP is 300 and some pages.
Yeah,
got
part
sent
of
to
it
me.
is the paperwork, part of it is, and this is
Yeah.
in all, the parents are yelling at
305
me.
pages.
You know, and it is what it is. And I don't want to work $17 an hour, even if I get state benefits, with someone telling me I'm a shithole, excuse me. That's, you know, so, and I know there are challenges on both ends, but, and I got a student loan that I can't pay. That's the stress. And I'm not apologizing for anything on either end. It is what it is. But Michigan, for example, I talked to Michigan, the ARC there, they're changing because of staff turnover, 3 to 5 hours to do the assessment. So it takes intensive training to train the person, our SSAs who do the assessment. And then it takes 3 to 5 hours to do it, to determine funding ranges. So at this point, the decision's made to change. And then there'll be the rules process on wanting to change to something else. But we're gonna be having debates. It will take a good 2 years to make the switch. So the DDP affects people on the IO waiver. The acuity assessment affects people on every waiver because it affects the day service.
Right.
The CIS, or whatever we adopt, will affect everyone. So if I'm on a level 1 waiver and an adult and I have a little over a $62,000 annual budget, how is this new instrument going to affect me? Right now, I just have a little over $62,000 a year. How will that affect me? But the message, and I ask this, is there will be no penalty for parents in this. There will be no question about where do you live. It will be about how do you function and what are your needs. So we're going to do a lot of investigation. There are 2 CISs, one for adults and one for children under 16. Dave asked me on the way in, why 16?
Doesn't make any sense to me.
We've always used the OEDD and COEDD at that too. I don't remember why was a decision made. I can make a sandwich at 15, I can make a sandwich at 17, or maybe vice versa, I don't know. So things
Seems
are
weird to me
happening
you
with
have
that.
An instrument for a child, but 18 is when you're an adult. It seems kind of strange.
The other thing I've been telling you for over 5 years is that the level 1 and the self we're gonna combine. That is not a priority with this administration.
It's not.
Is not. So while the level 1 and the self look almost identical, I think they've decided they just have other things they've got to deal with. So even they'll be doing the reassessment, but they'll have to redo the funding ranges as well, because the DDP is tied to something that doesn't exist. The cost of living centers that
Cost of doing business categories, there's 8 in Ohio, that's been, what, 20 years old?
over 25 years.
Yeah, so
And-
all of that, I think we believe that all needs to be looked at some point to.
And I've already volunteered Dave to sit on that. But,
That sounds about right.
So much of this is just, we're prepping for something else. We don't know what the something else is gonna be for sure yet. The department was pretty matter of fact, we're changing to the CIS. So we all wanna kinda have a further discussion and listen to what other states have decided to do.
Well, I don't think there's, honestly,
There isn't anything else.
I don't think there's a
but-
perfect tool out there. Every state we talk to has some different things. The ODDP that we took from New York 20-some years ago and changed it 40 times to fit what we were trying to do at that time. Made sense, and it's obviously lasted this long, not perfect by any means, but any other tool out there too. You talk to other states, they have the same kind of issues with the tool they're using.
So we kept you a long time. Can I answer, or can we answer anything? Okay.
See, that was perfect.
You'll be back next
Everyone's
week.
either in a food coma or we're done with you guys.
We're always available though. Call us, email us. We will get back to you.
You'll be back here next week too with Kim,
Is that next week?
the 17th.
Okay.
Okay, stand up and say something.
And my
real
church.
quick. Just say something
Well,
real quick.
David's coming with me. So,
Hey, yeah, my meeting is next week on the 17th at 6:30. Dave will, Dave will be there, Gary will be there, Kim Hawk, and probably Jeremiah.
yes.
And Jeremiah will probably be there.
And it's gonna be pretty open.
Yeah, we'll sit around a big old table and we'll just chit chat and talk and
Are
ask
you gonna
questions.
do it by around the table, not
Yeah,
in the
that's what we're gonna do, like we did the last time when you guys were there.
Yeah,
So,
so, I'm wondering,
very informal.
So here's some information up here for Becky, so please come get it. Okay, just a couple things and I'll let you guys go. First is our Uniquely You magazine.
When did they change the name?
A few months ago.
Okay.
And so those who are new to Sharing Solutions, I would suggest you take one home because this is a great resource.
It is.
And again, it's down to earth. It talks about our kids. And also, back in the back, we have lots of resources here. So don't go anywhere without taking something. So our next meeting is November 12th, Medicaid Managed Care and Payments. Again, guys, this is where we really need voices like Gary was talking about. We can't make change unless we have voices. So we want them to know how much this is affecting losing Medicaid and not having them is affecting our lives and our loved ones' lives. So we've got to make sure that when they leave here from Canton, when they go back to Columbus, we're making a big stink. We're going to come back and say, there's that little group in North Canton, Ohio, that's kind of like being difficult. We want to be that difficult. Right, Gary?
Oh, yes. I always tell people, I used to say it's Gary Tonks, MED. It's now Gary Tonks, SOB.
So if you guys can make it, we really would appreciate it because we need to share stories. We need to share stories, especially if you've lost a doctor recently, or if you cannot find a dentist. We need to let them know this. So please keep November 12th open. Come back and see us. And just one more check. Does comment cards, just if you can, just throw them on the table for us. Beth, do you have anything you want to say?
Well, no, somebody just wrote that Cleveland area Metro Health has a newish dental sedation clinic. I think we've talked about it, but just to remind people.
Is that Metro Health?
It's Metro Health is all the way downtown.
And I do think it's a really long
Wait list.
I heard 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See, this is what we need to tell them. Because again,
And then if they're on a 2 to 3 year waiting list to get in
well,
for regular dental.
when we sat here, when our county, when Jim and Danita came, they didn't know that we didn't have doctors. I mean, it was like because they think that they do. Here, we don't. So this is where we need to share our stories and say, hey, this is unacceptable.